So let's talk about purchasing goods, our first topic in financial maths. So purchasing goods. Now, interest, we talk a lot about interest. That is the cost of borrowing money. So whenever you borrow money, there's a cost incurred. So that's if you borrow it, or you can earn it if you invest it. That's the cost the bank has. But interest, I want you to think about this, is the cost of borrowing money. Now, specifically, we're going to talk about a type of interest called simple interest. So this is interest that is calculated only on that initial amount borrowed or invested. Okay, initial means starting. So we calculate it only on that starting amount. That starting amount we call the principal. Now this is the formula here to calculate interest. Interest equals principal times by the rate times by time, all divided by 100. So we'll do this on the calculator a few times to figure it out, but that's the formula. Interest, principal, rate, which is the interest rate per time period. Usually we talk about this in terms of interest per annum, which is the interest rate over the year per annum. Okay, and time is the time the money is invested or borrowed. Okay, so Simon borrowed $5,000 at 3.75% per annum and pays it back after 3 years. What is the interest that Simon has to pay? And how much in total does Simon have to pay back? Okay, so first off, let's look at what is the interest Simon has to pay. So I'll bring up my calculator. So the interest rate was 3.75%. So, and he borrowed, the principal was $5,000. The interest rate, 3.75. And the time that was 3 years. If I divide it by 100, that is, just double checking, $562.50. Now I'm going to show you another way of calculating that might be a little bit quicker. So that one dividing by 100, we only do because of that rate. Okay, because that's a percentage, and the way we can represent a percentage as a decimal is to divide it by 100. So sometimes I just divide by 100, which you might remember is, like moving that decimal place. But I think for now we'll stick with that dividing by 100. Now, okay, so that was the interest earned. Now please remember, when we are writing any money amount, it is to 2 decimal places. Okay, I know the calculator said 0.5. However, we know money. Okay, you know money. Does it go to 1 decimal place? No, it always goes to 2 decimal places. So you must always write money to 2 decimal places. So that is the interest that Simon has to pay. So how much in total does Simon have to pay back? Well, he has to pay back the $5,000 he borrowed. He also has to pay the bank that $562.50. So that means he's paying back in total $5,562.50. Okay, that's why I talk about interest being the cost of borrowing money. But yep, he's borrowed $5,000, but he has to pay back a bit more. Okay, That's the interest. Okay, so Wei invested $3,000 at 4.25% per annum for 6 months. How much interest did she earn? So that's the interest rate per annum, per year, is 4.25%. And she's invested for 6 months. Now, 6 months, how much is that in terms of years? It's half a year, isn't it? Yep, there's 12 months in a year. So 6 out of 12 is 1/2. So it's half a year. So I'm going to get my calculator back up. Okay, so she borrowed 3,000 at 4.25% for 6 months. In other words, half a year. Okay, divided by 100. So she earned, over that 6 months, she earned $63.75 interest. That means that at the end of 6 months, if she went to get her money out of that bank account, she'd have $3,063.75 in there. Now, the textbook here is talking about different payment options that we have. Now, we know with cash, or your debit card that comes straight out of your savings account, the marked price, the price on the product, is paid on the day, and you don't have anything more to pay, okay? Now, lay-by is something that you may not see a lot of anymore, because other things have sort of replaced it. With lay-by, so you'd put a deposit down and the customer makes regular payments towards paying off that item, but the item is held by the retailer. Now, these days, I know we have something called Afterpay. Yep, I'm sure you're familiar with that. You would have seen it around. Now, with Afterpay, you can get the item on the day, but then you have to make regular payments towards paying that off. Okay, so that's sort of a similar idea. Now, be aware that sometimes you get charged a fee with that. And of course, with Afterpay, with your credit card, you can get in trouble there if you don't pay your credit card off on time. You can be charged a whole lot of money. Speaking of credit cards, okay, so with a credit card, the retailer, the person selling, gets paid, by Visa or MasterCard, whoever that credit card company is. Then the customer, takes those goods, and then that customer, we then have to pay back the credit card company. Okay. Now, if you pay off that credit card bill at the end of the month in total with no more owing, you don't get charged anything, okay? Then there's no extra charge. However, if you don't pay it all off, interest is charged on the outstanding amount. That's, how much you still owe, and at a very high rate. Yes, that is incredibly true. So to put in perspective, your normal sort of mortgage and savings account, they're somewhere between 3 and 4% per annum interest. A credit card is around 16% per annum interest. So it's at incredibly high rates. Now, also, it's not listed in your textbook, but I'd like you to know that, those payday loan things like Nimble, where you borrow money they start charging interest the day of. Okay, so credit cards give you a month or close to a month to pay off that amount that you owe them. Those things like Nimble don't give you any time. They start charging interest straight away. All right, so it can be very expensive. So the price of a vacuum cleaner is $1,200. Min decides to purchase the vacuum cleaner using his credit card. At the end of 1 month, the credit card company charges interest at a rate of 15% per annum. Calculate the amount of interest that Min must pay on his credit card after 1 month. So this has assumed that he, hasn't paid it off. All right, he hasn't paid off that $1,200, that $1,200. Okay, so he borrowed $1,200 from the credit card company. The rate is 15% per annum, and it's 1 month, so it's 1 month out of 12. Okay, and we divide by 100. So in 1 month, he's incurred $15 worth of interest. Now, as I'm sure you may or may not know, simple interest isn't actually how the real world operates, but it's a nice way for us to work in maths to introduce the idea. So after this month, he'll start incurring a lot more interest. So yes, so that's the amount of interest that Min must pay on his credit card after 1 month, $15.